On. The meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. I'm going to close the door. Okay. All righty, I think we'll get started. Once again, welcome to the 2021 baseball Zoom meeting. It's great to see all of the folks that are on here. We're got quite a few. Understand that this will be recorded and will be available on the CHSAA YouTube channel for your coaches following the meeting, the administrative meeting. George Demetrio will give a short 20 minute overview of all the rules that were new last year, but we did not have the opportunity to implement last year, and we'll just do a quick overview of those. So I'm just going to go down my list. If you have any questions or anything along those lines, please put them in chat. Brad Kochi, who is our new CHSAA Now person, will be monitoring the chat along with me at the best I can as I'm going through it. And Lakin Cooper, my assistant, is behind me. Let's see if I guess I can't see you, Lakin. So is behind me listening in. So I'm going to start first with the COVID mandates and requirements. All COVID mandates and requirements are locally determined. There are no CDPHE Season D variances. Those are granted only by the local health departments. This includes decisions on masks while playing, masks in the dugout, masks for spectators, social distancing requirements in dugouts, social distancing requirements in the stands, capacity limits. You will need to get with your local health department to make those determinations. For the athletic directors that are on this Zoom, Commissioner Rhonda Blanford Green sent out an email reminding you that this was the way it was going to be. I want to say middle of last week, maybe even early last week. So capacity limits are going to be determined by your local health department, and any restrictions related to the COVID pandemic will be determined by the local health department. Regular season, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I would like for you to reference the memo of April 13th that I sent out, which was last Tuesday. All schools got it through their athletic directors. If you haven't shared that with your coaches, please do so. Formal practice starts April 23rd, 26th. Formal practice starts April 26th. My fault. The first contest is May 3rd. However, foundation games may begin on May 1st if the players have their 3 mandatory practices within the formal sports season and after the formal sports season start date. So if you start April 26th and your players are at all the practices, you should be able to play a foundation game on May 1st if you so desire. Each sport in Season D was allowed to schedule up to 2 additional foundation games, matches, or events under the following conditions. These games have been approved with no financial share to the association office, and member schools will retain all revenues. And notification of the foundation games do not need to be submitted to CHSAA, and foundation games again can be held on May 1st through June 26th. So if you don't make the playoffs and you want to play after your team has been eliminated and there's somebody else that wishes to play, you can play a foundation game at that time. The scheduling of these games, matches, would allow Season D participants additional game opportunities without impacting the playoff rankings. The foundation games are not included in the regular season or playoff RPI to protect the schools that may have equitable discrepancies within their overall programs. Again, the voluntary nature and approval to host these games, meets, matches, etc., is at the full discretion and decisions of the school or school district. The decision to add 1 or 2 foundation games and the choice of opponents, scheduling of officials, securing sites, transportation would be at the sole discretion of our member school administrators. And if you hadn't read Miranda's email, I just read it to you on that. Roster limits. During the regular season, schools will need to work with their local health departments to determine how many players may be on the field at any one time. I will suggest that you ask for 25 players, 4 coaches, and 1 athletic trainer per level. CHSAA will be seeking those variations for the varsity state tournament at the end of the season from each local health department in the jurisdiction that we will be holding playoff games. Team playoff eligibility. To qualify for the state playoffs, each school varsity team will need to play a minimum of 7 varsity games. We discovered in other sports, there still remains a chance that you will not get all your games in, whether it's weather, whether it is COVID quarantines, whatever happens. We saw the Keith, what I'm saying is 25 players per team. Per team. Home team dugout, visiting team dugout. And we will be seeking those same variations for each local health department in the playoffs. So in order to qualify for the playoffs, you have to have 7 games. During the basketball season, I know that it's an indoor sport, but we saw a disruption of approximately 40% of our games statewide with COVID, and those that got all of their games in had to scramble near the end of the season. So that's why we went with that number. Your individual participation limits, exclusive of extra inning, foundation games, districts, regionals, and state playoff games, is 120 innings. Pitch counts. CHSAA pitch count rules apply for foundation games, regular season, and playoffs, the same as they would in any previous year. Our bulletin will be posted later this week. Yes, it will be posted later this week. I'm going to go to the chat real quick, see if we can catch up. From Matt Dar, if we require masks at Regis Jesuit and dugouts, do visiting teams have to follow? Yes, you are following the rules of where that game is being played. Keith Wall, you said only 25 players. Keith, that's actually 50 players that we're seeking per game. From Graham Bond, how do extra inning games affect the 120 inning limit? Extra inning games do not count against your inning limit. So you will pick up some of those. They do count for pitch counts though, but they don't count against the individual. David, they do not. David Mills has asked, do the 120 innings include the foundation games? No, they do not. All right, talk about Sunday contact. We're going to go into some of the CHSAA rules. Been asked, when can Season D coaches have Sunday contact with their high school and non-school players? Answer is Season D coaches at all levels can have Sunday contact with their high school and non-school players at the conclusion of their season unless noted per bylaw 2310.5. Greg Perrin, I will answer that as we get further along. 8th grade contact. How does the extended Season D impact 8th grade contact with Season D coaches and players? Bylaw 1900.5 outlines what can and cannot occur with the incoming 8th graders prior and after May 1st. Season D coaches and players cannot have contact with incoming 8th grade students until their 2021 spring competitive season has concluded. And that goes across all sports. Player eligibility in Season D. Players in Season D will use eligibility checks like normal until the school year is over. Going to go through the individual state playoff formats right now. Class 1A, the regular season ends June 5th. Districts are completed by June 12th. The seeding meeting will be June 13th. Regional tournaments will go June 19th. Semifinals and finals will be June 23rd. The format is 12 teams to regionals, top 2 from each district and the remaining 2 by RPI. District champions will be seeded by RPI 1 through 5, with the top 4 serving as regional hosts. The 5th district champion will be seeded 5th. The remaining teams will be seeded in RPI order, avoiding first round district matchups if possible. Class 2A. Regular season ends June 12th. Seating meeting is June 13th. Regional tournaments are on June 15th. The quarterfinals and the finals will be June 19th, which will then give us a championship game, which will be played June 26th, as the CHSAA Legislative Council approved in their report last year. The format is 24 teams to regionals based on RPI. The 8 teams with the highest RPI will host regionals. The remaining 16 teams will be ranked by RPI, and then any first round league matchups will be adjusted. The bottom 12 teams may be moved for geographical purposes. And remember, as we get into the 2A through 3A, or 2A through 5A, regional hosts will receive a bye in the first game. There will be 3 teams at each regional. Classes 3A through 5A. Regular season ends June 12th. The seating meeting is June 13th. Regional tournaments, June 14th. Games 1 through 11, June 18th through 19th. Games 12 through 15th, June 25 to 26. The format is 24 teams to regionals based on RPI. The 8 teams with the highest RPI will host regionals. The remaining 16 teams will be ranked by RPI, and then any first round league matchups will be adjusted. The bottom 12 teams may be moved for geographical purposes. There is no protection for league champions. Playoff sites. Well, hang on a second. I think we have some questions on the. Greg, I hope I answered your question on the 2A, 3 games at one site. John Morian, to everybody, what about eligibility after the school year is complete? Once you stop taking weekly eligibility, if they are eligible, then they're eligible, and you keep moving on. From Keith Wall. Great question, Keith. 8th grade contact question. Is the date of the contact contingent on when the program seasons end? If a season doesn't make the playoffs, is our contact different than those who continue in the state playoffs? Yes, it's when your season ends.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is that okay?
Hang on here just a second. I gotta go ahead.
So if your JV team, if their season ends on June 5th, can the JV coaches have contact? Or if you're continuing in the playoffs as a program, do you have to wait until you're totally done?
It's till your program is done.
Thank you.
That's the only way that we can keep it as consistent as we can at that point.
Thank you.
You bet. Coach Percy, when would a player who is academically ineligible at the end of the semester have the opportunity to regain eligibility? That student, we use semester grades to ascertain eligibility for the next semester. So if he is ineligible at the end of your weekly eligibility checks, it stands to reason he would not be playing the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Yep. Justin Carpenter, how you doing, man? Are sites named for state yet? No, they are not. That will be my next that will be my next conversation with you all. We are working on securing those, but I'll get into that in a minute. Damian Julian. So if you win your league, you're not guaranteed a spot in the state tournament. Why is that? There is a chance that you won't even get through you might not even get through your league schedule with quarantines, with rainouts, those kinds of things. And so we took a page from the basketball playoffs this year and just qualified straight to the bracket. State playoff sites, still working on those, as I noted. Many of the ones that we have used in the past are unavailable, and due to construction or new relationships with collegiate teams or team camps for other sports using those facilities. And so I'm working with the Colorado Dugout Club a little bit to start getting some suggestions for sites that we might explore to use. And anybody out there, if you have an idea or you have a facility that you believe works for regionals, or not regionals, but games 1 through 11, 2A, 1A regionals, or games 12 through 15, I would ask that you email those suggestions to me so I can make immediate contact and we can have a conversation. One of the keys in all of this, some of the keys that we need a good playing surface. We need seating. We need access to restrooms. And we would need to be able to have a good conversation about how much that's going to cost everybody to run it and to be reimbursed and all of that, and how it would be staffed. So if you have some ideas or you have some place to volunteer, please feel free to do so. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to George Demetrio, the Colorado High School baseball rules interpreter, to do a presentation of the rules for those coaches still needing their coaching meeting. Before he starts, the link that I sent you yesterday from the CDC worked for me to get in for free on there. That is not the case overall. So we will follow up on that and find out why that is the case, because it was the understanding that that would be the case for anybody who was involved. Oh, David, yeah, I want, yes, the academic eligibility regain date for season D is May 3rd. But I want you to just be aware of that. But I think we can handle a lot of the rules issues and rules meeting issues with George's presentation right now. And then if your coach isn't available and they can get on tomorrow and review George's portion of this Zoom, and we can they can use that as their coach's rules meeting. George?
I'm ready.
We're ready for you.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Bert. There's only 3 items that are new for the 2020 season. And by the way, there are no 2021 rule books. No state was able to complete their 2020 season, so the Federation did not publish 2021 rule books. So if you have the 2020 rule books, you have the latest publication that is out there. You should have also received from CHSAA a DH guide. I don't have it handy, but It's a small pamphlet which was distributed to all the coaches. And that is my first topic, the new designated hitter rule. And then we're going to talk briefly about baseballs and chest protectors. So now there are 3 lineup options to include 2 separate designated hitter options. And a team can still choose to start the game without a designated hitter, straight 9. Once you do that, you cannot go to a designated hitter. There is no change to that. Okay, so what the umpires are going to do is they're going to take your lineup card and they're going to review it and mark it with A, B, or C to indicate the type of lineup that you have chosen to use for that game. So the standard 9 is an A, and then you can see the B is the standard DH, which is unchanged, and C is the new player DH. So the DH under either option will be, well, under the option, the standard option is a 10th starter. If you use the new player DH, you only have 9 starters, but then you'll be able to go to 10 and then back to 9. And then once you do that, then you stay at 9. As I said, the standard DH works for any player, and there's no change, absolutely no change from the previous rule. Under the previous rule for the standard DH, the DH is terminated when the DH or any previous DH assumes a defensive position. Okay, under the new player DH, this is really designed for the pitcher, but in keeping with the Federation tradition, they wrote it so that it could apply to any player. And the philosophy is you can start a good hitting player as the pitcher, and then when he reaches his pitch count or you decide to take him out, he can remain in the game as the DH and continue to bat. So you'd be starting with 9 players, and then if you take the pitcher out as a pitcher and keep him as a hitter, you've gone to 10 players. And then if you make any changes to that, to him, take him further out, including putting him back as a pitcher, which I don't think anybody will want to do, then you're back to 9, and then you have to stay at 9 under the standard rules. Okay, under the player DH, substitutions are normal. However, if you pinch hit for the player DH, that loses the DH for that game. That's one little quirk about the rule. Okay, so there it is in writing. When any player substitutes offensively for a DH, either as a hitter or a runner, the DH is gone. Okay, courtesy runners are unchanged. Pitcher and catcher, separate courtesy runners. As long as the previous inning ended with the player either on the mound or as the catcher, if he comes to bat, he can have a courtesy runner, but a pinch hitter for that player cannot have a courtesy runner because they didn't play defensively as either pitcher or catcher. Okay, that's the DH rule. Moving on, baseballs now have to have 2 logos. The one on the right is the standard NFHS logo, which is a marketing ploy. So that has to be there. And then the new requirement is the NOXI standard. These balls have been available for over a year. Hopefully you do not have very many of the older balls left. Although NOCSAA is a safety organization with a safety certification, the baseball is really not safer than any other baseball. NOCSAA was tasked with asking manufacturers to qualify for the purpose of uniformity in production. So therefore, the umpires have been told that if you are to run out of NOCSAA certified baseballs during the game can be continued with a standard baseball that has the NFHS logo. We hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, we do not want the game terminated or suspended for lack of a NOCSAA certified baseball. And they have been asked to report that to Bert if that happens. So we would appreciate it if you would make sure that you avoid that situation, but if it does, the game should not be impacted. Chest protectors, there are new chest protectors, and they also have been on the market for over a year. They have the NOCSAA label. They are reinforced in the center to prevent or reduce the impact of a direct hit in the area of the heart. If the catcher has an older chest protector, he can still wear it if he has a vest that is sold separately and is a bit cheaper than a whole new chest protector. So either the NOCSAA certified vest under an older chest protector or a new NOCSAA certified chest protector are sufficient to be legal equipment. Okay, points of emphasis. Just going to cover a few things. You've probably heard these before. The jaw protectors, or the C-flap as it's called, that is legal on any NOCSAA certified helmet. Doesn't matter whether the shop teacher put it on for the player or whether it was manufactured, as long as the helmet is NOCSAA certified, the C-flap is legal. There is no certification for the C-flaps. The catcher's mask, this comes up every year. In order to be legal, it either needs to be a hockey style mask with a helmet, or it needs to have double ear flaps. The key to the legality is having both ears protected. So the skull caps, as shown in the background on the right, are not legal. Okay, game ending procedures. I'm not going to dwell on this. We have not changed this for at least 10 years. If anybody has a question on game ending procedures, let us know. But basically, and I think the major leagues have done it also for this season, once it's played, it counts and it becomes a suspended game, whether it is a regulation game or not. Okay, we don't want to dwell on that. Force play slide rule is unchanged. And with that, I will wrap it up and take any questions. Okay, apparently Bert doesn't have any, so I'll turn it back over to Bert.
George, I do have a couple things I just want to follow up on. I believe that almost every baseball manufacturer has gotten the NOXI stamp onto their balls in the last year, but that may not be the case. Wilson was one of the ones that started getting the NOXI stamp on there rather quickly prior to the 2020 season. So I think what we're talking about with that NOXI stamp is not necessarily going to be a major problem, but we are asking the umpires, if they experience something like that, to give me or Tom Robinson a report with that information in there so that we can have a conversation with the athletic director and coach to ensure that we're getting that addressed as we move forward on there. Keith, we can find a way to get that out to you on that. If there's no more questions, I know that there's some people that were hoping to be at practice this afternoon, at least up in the Denver area north, but may not be able to, but are probably bringing the kids into an alternate site. So we will let everybody move on if we don't have any other questions. And again, this presentation will be saved, and you can find it on the CHSAA YouTube channel. And so those of you ADs whose coaches need that, it will be up, I hope, by tomorrow. We have several other questions, so I'll just grab those as we go along. Okay. From John to everyone, can you confirm roster limits, please? We are going to, when we go as CHSAA to request roster limits for the playoff games, we are going to ask that we are able to have 25 players per team on the field. And so that means that we're looking at a total of 50 total players per field is what we are looking at. That does not include coaches. That does not include athletic trainers. Those are considered safety personnel. And so those, we are asking for 4 coaches to be allowed per team and 1 athletic trainer per team. Graham Bond, is moving a player from JV to varsity still not allowed during the season? No, you can swing players. You just have to make sure that they fit within that 120 inning individual player limit. And Nick, how will our AD know we were part of this meeting for the rules part? I guess I'm going to have to be your alibi. So if he has a question, he can call me. Any other questions?
Yes, Bert. The way I read the rule, is it correct that you don't have to have the NOXI ball for the underclass games? It said varsity level.
That's what it said.
Okay.
Tori, travel ball during, yes. Tori, what the question that you're asking, are players allowed to play travel ball during the high school season? They are per state law. And that's, it's a great question. You are allowed to create uniform team rules under state law that have requirements for all players on your team, but you can't tell them that they can't play outside of the time that they're putting on your team. But if you have a rule that says you have to be at the practice before a game, that's perfectly legal as long as you're applying it to everybody for whatever reason. Your athletic director has a copy of the state statutes handbook that covers the high school sports rules that are covered by state law, and it's pretty well explained in there.
Hey, Bert, real quick on that
Yep.
note, this is Marcy Ham. Isn't that the rule where they have to still get the permission in writing from their principal?
That is correct.
Okay.
They need to be outside, and I would encourage you to go back to your athletic director and chat with them if you're a coach on that one. Athletic directors, that state statutes handbook is on our website and easily accessible by finding it. Innings are counted by the time, if a player steps out into to play in any part of an inning, that's an inning. It's not considered an entire game if he only plays a couple of innings. It's really just the innings that they play in. And if a team doesn't have baseballs with both stamps on before the game, that could become a problem. So I think as a coach or an athletic director, I think we should have that one solved before they go onto the field somehow. You might ask your opponent if they have some. Other questions?
Hey, Bert.
Yeah.
I missed it, I think, on the 2A when you were talking about the quarters and semis. Is that for certain just a one-day deal?
Correct. It is.
So Saturday, the 19th.
Correct.
Okay. And I mean, it's single elimination. I don't see where a team would be forced to play 3 games.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm also assuming you're looking at 2 sites there because pretty difficult to have 6.
Or a site with two facilities.
Right. 1 facility, 2 fields.
Yeah, 1 facility,
Okay.
2. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're scrambling on those.
Right. And we have some good suggestions for you there too.
Yeah, you have sent those up and I appreciate that. I'm going to start to work on those once this week frees up a little bit.
Okay,
Some more questions. Does each team need to provide their own game balls when on defense, similar to softball this past fall? No, that was a COVID restriction that was put in. And the only way you would have to do that is if your local health jurisdiction is requiring you to do that. Graham, your participation limit for practices is whatever your local health jurisdiction tells you can have on the field. Damian, the specifics of the 2 DH options will be in our bulletin, which may very well be posted. We're trying to get it posted by the end of the week. I think it may be posted tomorrow. All right, guys.
Bert, can I ask you
Yep.
a quick question?
Yeah, Matt.
It's pretty hard to put in the chat.
Yeah.
So incoming kids may participate in our summer program with kids currently in the program once they are done, but cannot be coached by any current high school coach until our whole season is done.
They can be a part of a club program until you are done. And a high school coach cannot be a part of that club program until the season is done.
So a non-high school coach could coach them and they could play with, say, a sophomore team player once their season is done.
Right.
Okay.
You guys are asking some technical questions that get around sometimes the intent of things. But the reality of it is I get where you're coming from and you want to keep kids going and want to keep them focused. All right, guys, I'm going to close this out and let you get back to your real lives.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Bert.
Thanks for the time, Bert.